Chapter 1. The ball hit the pavement with a wheezing thump. "That's S," said Chris, retrieving the ball as it bounced beneath the net. "All I need is E to win." "No kidding," Jack scowled and dragged an arm across his damp forehead. "I can spell too, you know." Chris laughed, taking no offense. "You're a crummy loser. And you're a rotten winner." Jack made a grab for the ball, but it evaded him, escaping through his opponent's legs. For a while, there was nothing but the sound of sneakers sliding on blacktop and the perfect, pounding rhythm of Chris's expert dribbling. Jack gritted his teeth, trying to steal, trying to block. He lunged forward, shuffled back, reached for the ball again and again. But Chris, skinny, knobby-kneed, hair always in the eyes Chris, didn't lose control for a second. Jack was getting desperate. "Traveling," he accused. "Nice try," Chris grinned. "Now, give me an E." Jack found himself watching helplessly as the ball rose, from knees to waist to shoulders, only to be released from Chris's fingertips in a graceful arc toward the basket. Swish! Again, Chris laughed. "Always did love those vowels." Jack had to smile at that, since it was an unmistakable reference to the day they'd met. Then he shook his head and crossed the driveway to lean hard against the garage door. It was the third game of horse Chris had beaten him at that afternoon. It didn't exactly bother Jack, since he had accepted long ago that Chris was the best basketball player he knew. Best swimmer, too, and skater. Chris also beat him at tennis on a regular basis. "Winner buys the sodas," said Chris, throwing a friendly punch to Jack's shoulder. "Come on, I'll race you to the deli." "Forget it." Chris was also the fastest runner. Jack sighed, leaving the ball in the driveway and following his friend toward the cool shade of the sidewalk. "I just have one question. How do you manage to nail every shot with all that hair hanging in your eyes?" "Concentration." Chris shook some rusty blonde bangs aside. "Besides, my dad ordered me not to cut it." Jack laughed. "All my dad ever does is yell at me to cut mine." "Go figure, huh? I wonder if—" But Jack didn't hear the rest of the sentence, because at that moment, his pal Chris stepped into a patch of sunshine, and the light settled in Chris's bangs, making them shimmer above a pair of enormous amber-brown eyes, which Jack wondered if he'd ever really noticed before. At that moment, Chris didn't look familiar to Jack. At that moment, she actually looked pretty. Christy Moffat was the first person Jack had met when he moved to Eastport. It was 7 years ago, 3 months into the school year. He was the new kid in first grade. Jack was assigned the seat across from Christy, and the teacher informed him that if he needed assistance with anything, Christy would be happy to help. Christy, for her part, informed him that if he or anyone else ever dared call her Christy, she'd be happy to bash them over the head with her lunchbox. Jack had taken that to heart. "Except if Kyle Baskin ever asks me to marry him," she'd confessed, her eyes dancing. "Only Kyle Baskin can call me Christy, if he wants." Jack frowned slightly and glanced around the classroom. "Which one's Kyle Baskin?" "Him." Chris used her pencil to point discreetly toward the back of the room. There was a dark-haired boy seated in the corner, with his back to the class. "The one in the timeout chair. It's his 3rd timeout this week." It seemed to Jack that a girl could do a heck of a lot better than a repeat offender like Baskin, but he decided not to say so. The teacher returned, handing Jack a workbook. She told him they were finishing up the section on vowels. That information had put an immediate lump in his little throat. He could feel the tears pinching at the corners of his eyes. He'd left his last school when they were just beginning the section on vowels. He'd missed all of it there, and now, apparently, he'd missed all of it here, too. Jack panicked. It seemed that he was doomed to go through life with no working knowledge of these mysterious letters. He would never learn the difference between short and long sounds, not to mention the whole silent E issue. His entire vowel-related